The orbital station hung above Zelthar Prime like a jewel suspended in space. Commander Rachel Hayes stood in the observation room, looking down at the blue and green planet below. She had been a soldier for 20 years, and she knew what it meant to face the unknown. Today was different, though. Today, she would meet a civilization so advanced that humans seemed like children in comparison. The Zeltharian Empire controlled half the galaxy. Their ships moved at speeds that defied physics. Their weapons could destroy entire worlds. Their people lived for 300 years and had bodies that could survive almost anything. For humans, who lived barely 80 years and whose bodies were soft and fragile, meeting them felt like meeting gods. Hayes adjusted her uniform. Her second-in-command, Major David Park, stood beside her. He was young but smart, and he understood that this first contact could change everything for humanity. If the Zeltharians respected them, humanity would gain allies. If they did not, humanity might become slaves or, worse. The door opened, and the Zeltharian delegation entered. They were tall, easily 8 feet high, with skin that gleamed like polished metal. Their eyes were large and intelligent, and their movements were perfect, like machines made of flesh. Leading them was a young female named Vexala. Vexala wore clothing that seemed to shift colors as she moved. Her hair was long and silver, and her eyes were bright and cold. She carried herself like someone who had never been told no in her entire life. She looked at the humans and smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "So these are the humans," Vexala said. Her voice was smooth but cutting, like a knife made of silk. I had expected something more impressive. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the lead diplomat, stepped forward. He had studied Zeltharian culture for 5 years. He knew their customs and their language. He thought he was ready for this moment. He was wrong. "We are honored to meet you," Walsh said carefully. "Humanity has much to offer the galaxy. We have art, music, philosophy, and—" Vexala laughed. It was a sound like broken glass. "Art and music? We have conquered 300 star systems. We have created technologies that your kind could not understand in 1,000 years. Your bodies break easily. Your minds are slow. Your lives are so short that you are barely born before you die. And you speak to me of music?" Hayes felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her face calm. Park tensed beside her, his hand moving toward his weapon. Hayes put a hand on his shoulder. This was a test, she realized. Everything about this moment was a test. "The Zeltharian Empire is impressive," Hayes said, stepping forward. "We do not deny that. We are young compared to your people. Our bodies are fragile, and our lives are brief. But we came across the stars to meet you as equals, not as children asking for approval." Vexala's eyes turned to Hayes. For a moment, something flashed in them. Interest, perhaps, or annoyance. She studied the human commander, looking at her from head to toe, as if examining an insect under a magnifying glass. "A soldier," Vexala said. "How fitting. The weak always need warriors. Tell me, human soldier, what makes you think you and your fragile kind deserve to stand here and speak to me as if you have accomplished anything worthy of notice?" Hayes looked directly into Vexala's eyes. "Because I stand here. Because I crossed the stars, knowing that I might die to make this contact. Because I am willing to do whatever it takes to protect my people. That is what humans do. We do not give up." "You will all give up," Vexala said coldly. "When you face real power, when you understand the truth of your own insignificance, you will beg for mercy. That is the nature of weak creatures." The tension in the room became thick and heavy. The other Zeltharians watched with what might have been amusement. Walsh tried to smooth things over. "Perhaps we could discuss trade agreements," he said. "Humanity has resources that we do not need anything from you," Vexala interrupted. She turned away from Hayes, as if the commander was no longer worth her attention. "You are here because my people were curious. We wanted to see what the fuss was about. Now I see. There is nothing here. You are just another young race, struggling to survive in a universe that does not care about you." She walked toward the window and looked down at Earth through the monitor. Hayes had transmitted images of their home planet before the meeting. Vexala studied them with disgust. "Your world is a mess of violence and chaos," she continued. "Your cities are primitive. Your weapons are toys. And yet, you come here thinking you can be part of our civilization. It is almost sad." Hayes did not respond. She had learned long ago that silence was more powerful than anger. She simply watched Vexala, and in her eyes was something the Zeltharian girl had never seen before. It was not fear. It was not weakness. It was certainty. It was the look of someone who knew exactly who she was and what she was willing to do. Vexala felt that look, and it bothered her. She was not used to being bothered. She was used to being admired and feared. She was the daughter of the most powerful being in the galaxy. No one challenged her. No one questioned her. No one looked at her the way this fragile human was looking at her now. "You may remain on this station for 3 days," Vexala said, her voice sharp. "That is all the time we can spare to observe you. After that, you will return to your little world and wait for further instruction. Perhaps, if you prove useful, we might allow you to serve us in some way." With that, she turned and walked out of the observation room, a delegation following behind her. The door closed with a soft hiss, and suddenly the room felt bigger and emptier. Walsh let out a breath he had been holding. Park looked at Hayes with concern, but Hayes simply looked back out at the stars. She had seen something in Vexala's eyes when she refused to look away. Fear, maybe. Or doubt. Something that suggested the young Zeltharian was not as certain about the superiority of her people as she pretended to be. "Well," Park said quietly, "that could have gone worse." Hayes did not smile, but there was something new in her expression. "No," she said. "That went exactly as it had to. Now we will show her what humans really are." The station orbited on, and below them, the galaxy turned, waiting to see what would happen next. The alarm came at midnight station time. Red lights filled the corridors, and sirens wailed through every section of the massive orbital station. Commander Rachel Hayes was already awake and moving before the first warning tone finished. 20 years of military service had trained her body to respond before her mind had fully engaged. She pulled on her tactical vest and was in the command center within minutes. The screen showed something that made even the most experienced officers freeze in shock. An entire asteroid field was moving toward the station on an intercept course. But this was no natural phenomenon. The asteroids were moving in formation. Controlled and deliberate. Dr. Kevin Walsh stood beside the main screen, his face pale. "The sensors show life signs," he said, his voice shaking. "There are creatures on those asteroids. Thousands of them. They are some kind of parasitic swarm. The automated defense systems tried to engage 10 minutes ago. And? Hayes asked, though she could already see the answer. The defense grid was dark, inactive. "Someone sabotaged them from inside," said Captain Linda Cross, the station commander. She was a Zeltharian, and her voice carried the weight of command that came from living 300 years. "A malfunction in the core systems. It will take at least an hour to repair. The creatures will reach us in 30 minutes. Hayes studied the screen. The asteroid field was still hours away from the main station, but the creatures were not on the asteroids. They had already launched themselves into space, using some kind of propulsion that the humans had never seen before. They looked like insects, but massive ones, with chitinous armor and far too many legs. Their eyes were compound and gleamed with hunger. "Can we evacuate?" Major David Park asked. "Not enough time," Cross said. "And even if we could, these creatures will just follow us." They seem drawn to the station itself. "I do not understand how, but they are targeting us specifically." Vexala entered the command center. Her eyes were sharp and cold as she studied the screens. She had been sleeping in the station's guest quarters, and she had come as soon as the alarm sounded. She looked at the creature swarm and then at Hayes. "Your doom has come, human," she said softly. "How does it feel? This is what happens when the weak encounter the strong. This is why your kind needs protection." Hayes ignored her. She was studying the pattern of the creature swarm, the way they moved, the way they accelerated and changed direction. She saw something that others had missed. "They are not that intelligent," Hayes said. "They move in a hive pattern, but the hive mind has a central control point. Look at the larger creature, the one at the center of the formation. If we can hit that, the others might scatter." Cross shook her head. "Our weapons cannot reach them in time, and the asteroids they came from are too far away now. They have detached completely. In 30 minutes, they will begin boarding procedures. This station will fall." Hayes turned to Park. "How much time do we need to prep an assault shuttle?" 5 minutes, Park said, understanding immediately what Hayes was thinking. "But the creatures will intercept it before it reaches the asteroid field." "Hayes, that is a suicide mission." "I did not say it would not be," Hayes replied. "But if we do nothing, everyone on this station dies anyway. The Zeltharians have weapons, but something is wrong here. They are not fighting back, not like they should be. That means someone does not want them to fight back." She looked at Cross. "That's sabotage." "It was not an accident, was it? Someone in the Zeltharian Empire arranged this." Cross's face hardened. "There are factions. Old families who resent the peace initiative with younger species. They want to prove that only the Zeltharian Empire deserves to stand among the stars. So they sabotaged your defenses and tried to wipe us out," Hayes said. "To prove that humans cannot survive in the galaxy." "That is the theory," Cross admitted. Hayes made a decision. She walked to the communication terminal and addressed the entire station. "All personnel, this is Commander Hayes. I am taking a strike team to neutralize the creature threat. Evacuate all non-essential personnel to the lower sections and seal the bulkheads. This is not a suggestion. Move now." Vexala grabbed Hayes' arm. Her grip was strong enough to break bones, but Hayes did not flinch. "You will die," Vexala said. "You will accomplish nothing except your own death. You are throwing away lives for no reason." Hayes met Vexala's eyes. "Maybe, but I am throwing them away to protect others. That is what soldiers do. That is what humans do. We stand in front of the danger so that people behind us do not have to." She pulled her arm free and turned to Park. "Get together our fastest people. Take only those who volunteer. I want that shuttle prepped in 3 minutes." The next minutes were a blur of activity. Hayes selected 5 soldiers from the human contingent. Park selected 5 more from the station's security force, Zeltharians who understood the concept of duty. Together, they made their way to the shuttle bay dot as they boarded the shuttle. Hayes looked back and saw Vexala standing at the observation window. The young Zeltharian-esque expression was unreadable. Hayes thought she saw something there, though. Something that looked almost like regret. The shuttle launched into the black void of space, moving fast and hard toward the approaching swarm. The creatures saw them immediately and began to turn, adjusting their course to intercept. But Hayes had calculated everything. She had studied their movement patterns, their acceleration rates, their turning radius. She knew they would do this. "Now," she said quietly. The shuttle dropped its cargo. What fell toward the asteroid field were not weapons. They were charges, small and precise, arranged in a grid pattern that Hayes had designed herself. They were meant to create a burst of electromagnetic radiation directly in the path of the creature swarm. The charges detonated. Space itself seemed to light up with harsh white light. The creatures screamed, a sound that the shuttle sensors picked up and transmitted to the command center. Their navigation systems had been based on some kind of sensory apparatus that the electromagnetic pulse had destroyed. They scattered, no longer following a coordinated pattern. The massive creature at the center of the swarm convulsed. Its control over the hive fractured. The other creatures, suddenly free from the collective command, lost all coordination and purpose. They began to move randomly, away from the station, away from each other. The shuttle turned and began to accelerate back toward the station. Behind them, the creature swarm was in chaos, no longer a unified threat. The danger was not over, but it had changed. It was no longer a wave that would overwhelm them. It was just a scattering of confused creatures, drifting in the vacuum. Hayes brought the shuttle back to the bay. When she disembarked, she was limping slightly from a wound on her leg that she had not mentioned to anyone. Park was helping a Zeltharian security officer who had been hit by debris during the run. The soldiers who came back did so slowly, but they came back alive. In the command center, the screen showed the creature swarm continuing to scatter. The immediate threat to the station was over. Vexala watched Hayes come out of the medical bay hours later, bandaged and moving carefully. The human commander had done the impossible. She had taken an action that should have resulted in death and turned it into victory. Not because she was stronger, or faster, or more advanced, but because she had chosen to stand in the face of death and refuse to move. Vexala realized, with a feeling she did not like, that she did not understand this woman at all. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors. Commander Rachel Hayes lay on the medical bed, tubes running into her arms and machines tracking every beat of her heart. The wound on her leg had been deeper than she had admitted, and there had been internal bleeding that the field dressing had not stopped. The Zeltharian doctors had worked through the night to save her life. She would live, they said, but it would take time. Human bodies healed slower than Zeltharian ones, and the damage had been significant. For now, she drifted in and out of consciousness, her mind traveling through memories and dreams. Vexala entered the medical bay without permission. The staff tried to stop her, but she was a daughter of the Queen, and no one dared physically restrain her. She moved to the side of Hayes' bed and looked down at the human commander. Hayes looked so small on the bed, so fragile. Her skin was pale except for the dark circles under her eyes. Bandages covered much of her body. Vexala had never really looked at a human before, not closely. She had always seen them as abstractions, examples of weakness, things that could not be taken seriously. But looking at Hayes now, she saw something else. She saw a person who had been willing to die so that others could live. Hayes' eyes opened. She focused slowly on Vexala's face, and for a moment, there was no change in her expression. Then recognition came. "You came to gloat?" Hayes asked. Her voice was rough and weak, but there was no bitterness in it. Just a question, asked honestly. "No," Vexala said. She had not known what she would say when she came here, but that word felt right. "I came to understand. The sabotage. The creatures. It was a test. My mother explained. Someone wanted to prove that humans could not survive here. They wanted to prove that allowing your kind to join the greater galaxy was a mistake." Hayes nodded slowly. "And did we pass the test?" "You destroyed creatures that we feared," Vexala said. "You did it with minimal resources. You sacrificed yourselves without hesitation. Yes, you passed the test. More than passed it." Hayes closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, she was looking directly at Vexala. "Then why do you look so sad?" The question caught Vexala off guard. She had come here thinking she would ask the questions, that she would be in control of this conversation. But Hayes had turned it around with a single question. "Because I was wrong about you," Vexala said quietly. "About your kind. I thought weakness was the same as worthlessness. I thought that if your bodies were fragile, then your spirits must be fragile too. I was wrong." "You were young," Hayes said. "Being wrong is not a sin. Learning from it is what matters." Vexala turned away and walked to the window. Below, Zelthar Prime turned slowly, a beautiful world covered in cities that gleamed like jewels. She had always thought of it as the center of everything, the most important place in the galaxy. She had always thought of herself as important because she lived there, because she was born into power, but this human, this fragile, short-lived creature lying injured in a medical bed had shown her something else. Hayes had not been born into power. She had not started with every advantage. She had simply chosen to do what was right, and that choice had mattered more than all of Vexala's inherited status. "Tell me about your world," Vexala said. "The images we saw were not kind to it." Hayes smiled weakly. "Earth is harsh. The gravity is heavy. The weather is violent. The creatures are dangerous. The food is hard to grow. Everything about living there requires work and struggle. Maybe that is why we are the way we are. We had to be strong just to survive." "You said you had a daughter," Vexala said. "I heard the soldiers talking. You mentioned her during the mission. You were afraid you would not get to see her again." Hayes' expression changed. For a moment, all the strength seemed to drain from her, and Vexala saw a different person. She saw a mother who was terrified of dying, who wanted to live to see her child grow up, who feared the weight of choices that might leave her family alone. "Her name is Emma," Hayes said. "She is 9 years old. She wants to be a pilot like her mother. I promised her I would bring her stories of the stars. I promised I would come home." Vexala felt something strange in her chest, something she had never felt before. It was not pity. It was something deeper. It was understanding. It was the realization that Hayes was not brave because she did not fear, but because she feared everything and chose to act anyway. The door opened and Queen Theralix entered. The guards and staff immediately bowed. Vexala turned and bowed as well, but her eyes stayed on Hayes. Queen Theralix was tall, taller even than most Iltharians, and her presence filled the room. She looked at Hayes with an expression that was difficult to read. She looked at her daughter and saw the change in her eyes. "The investigation is complete," Theralix said. Her voice carried the weight of ancient authority. "The sabotage was ordered by High Council member Krendor. He hoped to prove that your species was not worth the effort of integration. He wanted us to turn away from humanity and return to the old ways of conquest and domination." She moved closer to Hayes. "You have shown him that he was wrong. You have shown all of us something that we had forgotten. You have reminded us that strength is not just about power. It is about will. It is about purpose. It is about caring enough about others to risk everything." Theralix knelt beside Hayes' bed. Vexala gasped. A queen did not kneel. Vexala had never seen her mother show such respect to anyone. "I apologize," Theralix said simply, "for my daughter's cruelty, for the doubts my people harbored, for the test that was not meant to be a test, but became one. You have earned the respect of the Zeltharian Empire through your actions, Commander. That is something that many do not achieve in a lifetime." Hayes tried to sit up but fell back, too weak. "Your Majesty," she said carefully, "I did what needed to be done. That is all. I did not do it for respect or recognition." "I know," Theralix said. "That is why you deserve it." The queen stood and placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. Your new friend has much to teach you, Vexala. Listen well. After Theralix left, Vexala sat on the edge of Hayes's bed. She was quiet for a long time, and Hayes did not push her to speak. Finally, Vexala said, I want to understand. I want to know why your kind does what you do. Why you throw your short lives away for others. Why you keep trying when everything is against you. Hayes looked at the young Zeltharian. Because the alternative is to give up. And humans do not give up. Not really. Not where it counts. Teach me, Vexala said. Teach me to be brave like you. Hayes reached out her hand, weak as it was, and Vexala took it. In that moment, something changed between them. It was not friendship yet, but it was the beginning of respect. It was the understanding that strength came in many forms, and that true power belonged to those willing to sacrifice everything for those they cared about. The grand courtroom of the Zeltharian station was massive, a space designed to inspire awe and submission. Marble pillars rose from the floor to a ceiling that seemed to stretch into infinity. Holographic displays showed the symbols of the Zeltharian Empire, reminders of centuries of dominance and conquest. Queen Theralix sat on her throne, a chair carved from solid crystal that had been mined from a world destroyed 300 years ago. Below her, arranged in precise formation, were the members of the High Council. Each one controlled resources that would make entire civilizations tremble. Oh, each one had lived for centuries and commanded respect across the galaxy. And standing before them, still moving carefully due to her injuries, but with her head held high, was Commander Rachel Hayes. Beside her stood Major David Park and the other human soldiers who had volunteered for the suicide mission. Behind them stood Ambassador Lucas Murphy, the senior human diplomat who had led the first contact team. To the side, Vexala stood with several other members of the royal family. Her younger brother, Calthorn, watched the proceedings with intense interest. He had heard the stories, the real ones, not the propaganda versions. He wanted to see for himself what a human truly was. Theralix rose from her throne. The motion was simple, but every member of the council came to attention. A queen standing meant something important was about to be said. We gathered today to address a matter of great importance, Theralix said. Her voice carried through the courtroom, amplified not by technology, but by the authority of her presence. We have long known ourselves as the greatest power in the galaxy. We have technology that others cannot understand. We have lived longer than we can count. We have conquered worlds and brought civilization to those we deemed worthy. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the council. But I have come to understand that we have confused technology with strength. We have mistaken longevity with wisdom. And we have made a grave error. We have forgotten what strength truly is. The council members exchanged looks. This was not what they had expected to hear. Krendor, the council member who had orchestrated the sabotage, leaned forward with a confused expression. Theralix gestured toward Hayes. This woman, this human whose life spans barely a single century, this creature we considered so fragile that she would break if we touched her too hard, showed us what we had forgotten. She showed us that true strength is not measured by the length of your life or the power of your weapons. True strength is the willingness to face certain death and move forward anyway. True strength is sacrifice. True strength is choosing to protect others even when you are afraid. Hayes felt uncomfortable with the attention. She had not come here expecting to be praised. She had come because it was necessary. She had done what needed to be done. Commander Hayes and her team, Theralix continued, could have hidden. They could have evacuated with their people. They could have let the creatures attack and hoped that our superior technology would protect us all. Instead, they did something that goes against all logic from a strategic viewpoint. They took a small craft into the heart of danger, with no guarantee of success, no guarantee of return, no expectation of reward. They did this for one reason only, because it was the right thing to do. She moved down the steps from her throne, a motion that shocked every member of the council. Queens did not walk among the lower ranks. It was beneath their dignity. "I have lived for 287 years," Theralix said to Hayes directly. "I have ruled for longer than your entire civilization has existed. I have made decisions that affected millions. I have seen the rise and fall of stars. And I can tell you honestly that I have rarely met someone of any species with the moral courage that this woman possesses." She turned back to the council. "We have become comfortable in our power. We have become lazy in our superiority. We have forgotten that being the strongest does not give us the right to look down on others. It gives us the responsibility to protect them. Commander Hayes and her team have reminded us of this truth." Krender stood up. He was a large Zeltharian with scales that had been treated to gleam like armor. He had served on the council for longer than even Theralix could remember. His voice was hard when he spoke. "With respect, Your Majesty, I question this assessment. This human succeeded through luck, not through superior ability or wisdom. The creatures were not that dangerous. Our defense systems, even at full capability, could have handled them with minimal losses." Theralix turned to face him. "Then why did you sabotage our defense systems, Krendor?" The courtroom went silent. Everyone understood what had just been said. Krendor's expression did not change, but his scales flickered with color, a sign of deep emotion. "I ensured that our response would be measured," Krendor said carefully. "I did not orchestrate the creature attack. That was not my design." "No," Theralix agreed. "But you have allies who believed, as you do, that humanity should not be integrated into galactic society, and they knew that you would see this attack as an opportunity. They were right. You sabotaged the defenses because you wanted to prove that humans could not survive in the galaxy. You wanted to prove that they were too weak to be worth our effort." She looked at him directly. "And yet here they are, alive, successful, the threat eliminated. And you are proven wrong." Krender sat down slowly. He said nothing, but his silence was admission enough. Theralix returned to address the entire assembly. "I am declaring humanity a protected species under the full authority of the Zeltharian Empire. I am formally recognizing the human delegation as equals in all galactic councils and negotiations. And I am instructing all Zeltharian territories to offer whatever aid and support humanity requires as they grow and develop." She looked at Hayes. "Commander, you and your people have changed my perspective on what it means to be strong. I thank you." Hayes felt Park stiffen beside her, shocked by what was happening. Murphy looked like he might fall over. The other human soldiers were doing their best to maintain military composure, but Vexala could see the emotion breaking through. Hayes stepped forward and bowed, a gesture that she had learned was appropriate for addressing a queen. When she straightened, she looked directly at Theralix. "Your Majesty," she said clearly, "I appreciate this recognition. But I need to say something. We did what we did because it was necessary, not because we wanted to prove anything. We are not strong because we are brave. We are brave because we have no choice. We are not superior because we survive difficult things. We survive them because we have to. And we do not do these things for recognition or reward." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "But I understand what you are saying. I understand that you are telling your people that humans are worth respecting. And that matters. That matters more than anything else. Because if your people respect us, if they see us as deserving of protection and alliance, then we have the chance to build something together. Something that will benefit everyone." Theralix smiled. "Well said, Commander. I believe we will get along very well. As Hayes and the other humans were escorted from the courtroom, Vexala watched her. She watched how Hayes moved, careful with her injuries, but never showing weakness. She watched how Hayes carried herself with the weight of command and the burden of responsibility. She watched how a human fragile and short-lived and born into nothing had earned the respect of the most powerful queen in the galaxy through nothing but her character and her choices. Vexala understood now. This was not about technology or physical strength. This was about something far more important. This was about the kind of person you chose to become. The observation deck of the station was quiet in the late evening hours. The stars seemed closer here, more real, as if you could reach out and touch them. Commander Rachel Hayes stood at the viewport, looking out at the galaxy that stretched before her. Her injuries were healing, but slowly. The doctors said she would be able to return to limited duty within another week. She did not hear Vexala approach. The young Zeltharian had learned to move quietly, something that none of her siblings could do. Hayes noticed her presence only when Vexala stood beside her at the viewport. "I have been thinking," Vexala said, "about something you told me in the medical bay. You said that humans keep trying because giving up is not an option. I did not understand it then. I think I am beginning to understand now." Hayes turned to look at her. In the days since the courtroom ceremony, she had spent time with Vexala. The young Zeltharian asked constant questions, wanted to understand everything about human culture and human thinking. It was exhausting and educational in equal measure. "Everyone has choices," Hayes said. "The difference is what you do with them. But you do not have choices," Vexala said. "That is what I mean. You have short lives. You have weak bodies. You have limited resources. You should not be able to do the things you do. And yet you do them anyway. Why?" Hayes thought about her daughter, Emma, waiting back on Earth. She thought about all the moments she had missed, all the school plays and celebrations and quiet dinners. She thought about the possibility that she might not come home, that Emma might grow up knowing her mother only through videos and messages. "Because other people matter more than your own comfort," Hayes said. "Because protecting them, giving them a chance at a better future, is worth the pain and the sacrifice. Humans understand that some things are more important than our own survival." Vexala was quiet for a long time. She looked out at the stars, her silver hair reflecting the light of distant suns. When she spoke again, her voice was different. The arrogance was gone. What remained was genuine curiosity and a humility that Hayes had not thought the young noble could possess. "I was wrong about you," Vexala said. "About your kind. I thought that being the most powerful meant being the best. I thought that living the longest meant understanding the most. But you have shown me that I was wrong. You have shown me that strength comes from choice, not from birth. That wisdom comes from understanding what matters, not from years of experience." She turned to face Hayes. "I want to learn from you. Not just about human strategy or human weapons. I want to learn about why you are the way you are. I want to understand how humans find meaning in lives so short and so full of struggle." The door to the observation deck opened, and a younger Zeltharian entered. He was similar in appearance to Vexala, but his eyes were different. Where Vexala's eyes had been cold and proud, his eyes held warmth and genuine interest. "Sister," he said in the Zeltharian language, "I came to meet Commander Hayes as well. Mother says she is the most important person to speak with while she is here." Vexala made a gesture of greeting. "This is Calthorn, my younger brother. He is interested in human culture. I have told him about your courage and your sacrifice." Calthorn stepped forward and bowed, a gesture of respect that he had clearly been taught. It was not as practiced as a human bow would be, but the intention was there. "Commander Hayes," he said in careful English, "I wish to learn from you as well. Sister says that humans do impossible things. I want to understand why. I want to understand how a species can be so weak and yet so strong. Hayes smiled. That is the greatest question anyone can ask. And the answer is not simple. But I can try to explain. Over the next hour, as the stars wheeled slowly overhead and the planets rotated below, Hayes told them stories. She told them about the early days of human space exploration, when people threw themselves into dangerous missions, knowing they might never come back. She told them about her own training, about the moment she decided to join the military, about the moment she knew she would have to leave her daughter to serve something larger than herself. She told them about Earth, about how humans had survived ice ages and volcanoes and plagues. She told them about how entire civilizations had risen and fallen, how humans kept building and trying and hoping even after devastating defeats. She told them about art and music and love, all of which were meaningless from a pure survival standpoint, but which gave human life meaning and purpose. Vexala listened with an intensity that surprised Hayes. The young Zaltharian was not asking questions now, not interrupting with comments or disagreements. She was simply listening, absorbing, trying to understand a perspective that was completely foreign to her own experience. When Hayes finished, the observation deck was darker. Zalthar Prime had rotated away, and only the vast expanse of space remained visible. I think I understand now, Vexala said quietly. It is not that you are strong because your bodies are made of something special. It is that you are strong because you decide that you are strong. It is a choice you make every day to keep going. That is part of it, Hayes agreed. But it is also more than that. It is about loving people and places and ideas enough that you are willing to risk everything. It is about understanding that a life is not measured by how long it lasts, but by what you do with the time you have. Talthorn had been quiet, but now he spoke. You should stay longer. Our people need to learn what you know. Our civilization has technology and power, but we have forgotten that these things are only tools. What we have lost is purpose. What you have shown us is that even a young species, even one that is weak by our standards, can have purpose and meaning. The human delegation was scheduled to leave in 3 days, Vexala said. But I believe we should ask Mother to extend the visit. I believe there is much more we need to learn. Hayes nodded. I will speak with Ambassador Murphy. But I have to be honest with you. I cannot stay forever. I have a daughter waiting for me on Earth. I promised her I would come home. That promise is more important to me than anything. Vexala looked at Hayes and then at the stars beyond. She understood now what Hayes had been trying to teach her. She understood that true strength was not about being able to stay, but about having the love and courage to come back. Then we will learn quickly, Vexala said. And when you leave, you will go knowing that you have changed a people. You will go knowing that your daughter will be proud of what her mother did here. Hayes looked at the 2 young Zeltharians. So different from her, so powerful and yet so willing to learn. And she felt something she had not expected to feel. She felt hope. She felt the possibility that humans and Zeltharians could build something together, something that would benefit both species. This is just the beginning, she said. For us and for your people. The real work starts now. The real alliance, the real understanding. It will not be easy. But if you are willing to try, if you are willing to learn, then I believe we can do something great together. Below them, the galaxy turned on, full of stars and worlds and infinite possibilities. And in that moment, something changed in the grand story of Zeltharian civilization. Something shifted. A young species, fragile and short-lived, had stood before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and taught them what it truly meant to be strong. And the most powerful beings in the galaxy had been wise enough to listen. In the days that followed, the human delegation was extended by a month. Classes were held for interested Zeltharians to learn about human culture and human history. Vexala was the most dedicated student, spending hours in study and discussion. By the time Hayes and the humans finally boarded their ship to return to Earth, the Zeltharian Empire had begun a transformation that would affect the entire galaxy. Vexala stood at the viewport as the human ship departed, and she understood finally what her mother had been trying to teach her all along: that true nobility was not inherited, that respect had to be earned. That strength came not from what you were born as, but from the choices you made every single day. And as the small human vessel jumped to hyperspace and disappeared into the vast darkness of space, Vexala made her own choice. She would spend her centuries of life learning what humans had to teach. She would teach her people to respect beings who were different. And she would remember, always, the woman who had bowed before her as an equal and had taught her that the weak could be the strongest among us.